Tell me when it works. Now you're on mute. You there?
Yeah, you're good to go.
I guess. All right. So appreciate everyone, all the support this season. Obviously, we're encouraged by our season, the success that we had as an organization this year, in particular in a COVID year. Can't thank everyone enough.
Check. Sorry, I'm having audio issues, Nicole.
Both
Hey,
inside
could
the
everyone
building.
just mute themselves?
You can skip me, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Coach.
Did you pick up that first part, or do I need to start over again, Nicole?
No, we got the first part.
All right. So can't thank everyone enough inside the building, and those Buffalo Bills employees in particular that are outside of our building every day, doing the jobs that they're doing out there, and then the fans. Just a tremendous outpouring of support by our fan base, which is phenomenal for our team, and we look forward to continuing with that momentum going forward. Obviously, we're not happy and, in fact, disappointed with that last game. As we move forward, we've got to continue to ask the tough questions of the whys, the what ifs, the hows we can improve as a football team, and look at every aspect of our operation here. So traditionally, I'm not one to sit around and I think that neither is and I know our staff isn't either. So I think it'll be a productive off season for us. And so we'll end with that and open it up to your questions.
Good morning, Coach. Sal Capaccio here, WGR Radio. First, thanks for being available this morning and throughout the year under all the circumstances we all had to deal with.
Yep, sure, Sal.
Yesterday, we heard Tre'Davious say he hadn't seen his father since last summer. This morning, John Feliciano tweeted it's the first time he hasn't had to take a COVID test. It's been a challenging year, as we know. We're getting some perspective now just on how challenging that was for everybody. Personally for you, can you tell us how challenging it was, but also professionally as a leader of basically 70 guys in the locker room and as staff and all of that, can you kind of give us some insight going all the way back to when this whole thing started?
Yeah, I mean, it's real, right? I mean, we didn't know going from not knowing if we were going to have a season, if we could pull it off, all the work that went into getting training camp up and running on the front end, making sure we would be safe in this environment, especially not knowing back then what we didn't know about the virus. Could we actually work together in the same room as I'm in the same room with Derek now? Simple questions like that, things we took for granted before, have all of a sudden became challenges and tougher than expected. And so that then gets magnified over the course of a season. Every morning waking up, filling out a questionnaire, getting your nose swabbed, all of that is for good safety reasons, of course, but it becomes another layer on top of just trying to win games, and that's hard enough in normal years. But listen, we're not unlike anybody else in the NFL in terms of the challenges we had, and I thought our players and our staff did a phenomenal job of managing those challenges, and so in one hand, feel very grateful to have the opportunity to get tested too, because at the onset of this virus, there's a lot of people out there that didn't have the chance to get tested, and so grateful for that. And then just realizing, waking up sometimes early in the morning to positive tests. That's another element of, as a head coach, as Nate Bresky and Brandon and I all experienced, along with Kim and Terry, that was another layer of how do we then handle that, because you have to juggle schedules and at the end of the day come back to safety first, and so that's for football coaches evaluated on winning games. Sometimes that's hard to keep proper perspective and continue to put things and keep your priorities in the proper order. So all of that was a great challenge, but I think our organization, as we said at the outset, Sal, we knew that whoever had success in this year would have an asterisk next to their name as an organization. And I mean that in a good way. We showed that we are a winning organization. We showed that we keep and maintain safety first, and we care about our people. And I think that leadership, that starts up top with Kim and Terry. And I think at the end of the day, we won some games and had a successful season on the field. albeit very disappointed in the game a couple of days ago.
I know you have a good support staff at home with your wife and kids, but everything good on that front too for you personally through all this?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking, Sal.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Sean, good to see you. Yesterday when we heard from players, even I think it was Trey said that, the Chiefs are the standard. And if we want to get to where we want to go, then we have to beat that team. I guess from your perspective, how close do you think this team is to being able to take that next step and beat a team like the Chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, listen, they're in year 8, right? And we're in year 4, but that's a little bit of a feel for how long they've been building their program and where we are. There's a lot that we've improved in, Heather, in terms of what's gotten us to where we are. But to Trey's point and what we shared as a team yesterday is there is still a gap from where, in terms of where we are and where they are. And it's just not one answer as to that solves that problem. We all have to, starting with me, as I mentioned earlier at the outset of my opening statement, we all have to continue to ask ourselves the hard questions of the what ifs and the whys and the hows. And we as a staff have to get better and improve. We have to improve our roster. We have to improve our operation and what we do. And so we have a lot of respect for them. They're well coached and they have a good roster, and they play better than we did. They coach better than we did. And so, but this is a learning experience for us. A lot of our players have never been in a game of that magnitude on that stage. And I'm confident that we will learn from that experience. Those players in particular will learn that had never been in that situation. And we as an organization, I think, learned a lot by going through the week we just went through.
And yesterday, Cole said that he played through the playoffs with a partially broken fibula. I guess just what's your reaction to that? And, what does that say about him to play through that? Yeah,
it's up by the knee area, the upper fibula knee area. And I thought, Cole's a warrior. It didn't surprise me that he got himself ready to go since that injury. And so I think that really he's a shining example to our team of being able to work through that, the mental toughness it takes, not only physical toughness, that's obvious, but the mental toughness it takes to play in this league and what it meant to him to play down the stretch and how important it was to him.
Awesome. Thanks, Sean. Have a great offseason. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Heather, you too.
Hi, Sean. How
Hey.
you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good. So, Sean, I know you mentioned after the game you were going to give some thought to you faced challenges, decisions in games, personnel usage, strategic, all that right along as a head coach. You mentioned on Sunday, I believe that maybe if you had it to do over, you might do something differently regarding the going for at least one of a couple of the field goals. And I know there's one before the half, but there also was one in the second half that could have been a go for it situation. As you've reflected on that yourself, what kind of thoughts do you have to it? And also, if you could walk through maybe more now that you've had a chance to analyze it, what was behind doing what you did, why you thought that was the right thing to do, because it's obviously gotten a whole lot of second guessing, as you can imagine.
Sure. Well, when you get the result we got the other night, there's usually a lot of second guessing. It's funny how that works, right? But understand it's part of the job, and certainly take that responsibility head on. The one before half really felt like morale was a big piece of that. They had momentum. They were getting the ball after half as well, Vic, and felt like we needed to come away with points at that one, because even though sometimes analytics may say one thing, and whether it said it or not on our chart, I think there's a human element to the game at the end of the day, and felt like we needed to come away with points as I look at those guys in the locker room and say, hey, we got something to show for that drive we put together at the end of the half. And I thought that was important because it was getting awfully tough sledding there for a little bit. And then after half, yeah, that's the one that, even now I'm still continuing to process through. And on one hand, I felt at the time that, I think we were 2 of 8 at halftime on third downs, and we were struggling some on third downs. Felt like I think it was a 12-point lead at the time. We could get it to 9. That would change what we needed from 2 scores to a score and a half, however you want to say that in your verbiage. But even with that, that's still the one that very open with you here, that I still think about, hey, maybe I should have gone for it there. 4th and 3 felt like if we could get it to 4th and 1, 4th and 2, I know for sure we would have went for it. And so maybe, third down, sticking a run in there, getting that, 1 or 2 yards, so we felt a little bit more comfortable going for it there. But so score came into play a little bit there. But, at the end of the day, it's, Patrick Mahomes is a good quarterback. And so that's the piece in my mind too, Vic, where I'm like, kicking myself a little bit. At the end of the day, let's just be aggressive there and whatnot. So always learning from those situations. And more than anything, I think alignment as with me and my staff too, and the guys that help me, they've done such a great job all year. And so that's another piece of us growing as a team, as an organization, of, hey, if we're in that situation again, this is how we want to handle it, one way or the other. So a lot to learn from.
And Sean, just one follow-up. You anticipated where I wanted to go next, which is how you the process of ultimately the call is yours, of course,
Yeah.
but the input from others, does it function the way you want it to? Is that something to maybe look at for the future? Just those conversations that lead to you're saying that we'll go for it or not.
Yeah, no, I know where you're going with your question, but yeah, I mean, it's all, again, like I said, believe me, I haven't just had this conversation with myself. I've had it with the members of my staff that I worked so closely with during the game and game management. And I feel like we've gotten so much better this year in that area, but with more room to grow. And listen, as a coach, as a leader, you're always going to be, when things don't work out, you're always going to be second guessed. And hindsight's easy when it's after the fact, but it's when you're in that situation, the variables you're trying to evaluate and what's best for your football team. That's the decision I'm always going to make. Trying to make the best decision for our team, and you only get X amount of time to do it. So, but yeah, alignment with my staff of, hey, if this situation comes up again with this type of opponent in this situation of a game, hey, let's talk about that. And my mindset going forward, and I need this, and so those are healthy conversations that have taken place, and really, in fact, they happen after every game, Vic, and every experience we go through, or we watch other people go through that. So we try and continue to make good notes and keep a good record and resume for us moving forward.
All right, Sean, thank you. And as Sal said, thank you for, how you've handled this all year for us.
Yeah, I appreciate everyone out there, Vic, yourself included, and appreciate everyone's support, getting some really good stories about our organization out there. And it's really cool in this community. You can pair together with media. We have all our own separate jobs to do, but become kind of one family here in Western New York, which is pretty special. I appreciate you guys.
Hi, Sean. It's Jay with the Buffalo News. Do the stats tell a different story than maybe your film and video review of Ed Oliver's play this season?
Well, I'm not at this point in the offseason, Jay. What stats are you talking about? I'm not sure what stats you're talking about.
Well, you look at his sack numbers. Maybe they're not as high as some people would have hoped for a former top 10 draft pick. That's just one number. So I guess just, box score scouting versus what you're seeing on the film. Is it telling a different story?
Yeah, I think from time to time it can. Sometimes they're consistent with one another. At the end of the day, when you look at the film, I think Ed has made improvements in his second season. Do I think there's more work to be done? Absolutely. And just like there is with our entire football team. So we're early in the offseason yet. I think that's probably I would know more later in the offseason where I can give you a little better of an answer right there, Jay.
Okay. And then 2 housekeeping items. Number 1, are you aware of any updates in terms of your staffing that could be referring to Leslie and Ken, who, it's been reported are candidates for outside jobs, or any other changes on your staff? And then number 2, have you met with Nate Bresky, and are you aware of any medical procedures, meaning surgeries, that players will need this offseason?
Yeah, so I'll start with that one first. Very little information yet coming from Nate's office on who may need off-season surgery. We just have kind of some early thoughts on that. And then the other one with respect to our coaching staff, when you have success, there's always people that want to look at your team and maybe pull people off your team, off your staff. And so that's to be expected. I think both of those two are highly qualified, and I have a lot of confidence in both of those two men. We'll see what the future holds for both of them, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Thanks for your time as always, Sean.
Yep.
Hi, Sean. Adam Benini. I just wanted to, Vic kind of got into some of the specifics on the decision making on the field goals. You had mentioned, the whys and the what ifs, and off the top had mentioned you got out coached the other night. I guess in the bigger picture, beyond just those two instances you discussed, how do you feel that happened? How were you out coached in that game?
Well, when you lose the game, at the end of the day, you're out coached. I look at myself first. So at the end of the day, we won 15 games this year, lost 4. And so I start with myself, and I always, in those 4 games, when you lose the game, that's just how I'm built, Adam. And so I look at myself first. That's what a leader does. And that's the way I look at it. So.
And my other is on Josh, talking to him yesterday, and we don't know when we're going to get the chance to talk to him again, right? Going into the off season. But I asked generally about the idea of a long-term contract, and he didn't really want to get into that. But on a follow-up, I said, what do you think you proved? And he said, I think I proved they didn't make a mistake by drafting me back in 2018. I guess your thoughts on his season, the idea, the concept of getting him locked up long-term, and having found an answer at the most important position as you emerge from the third year of his career.
Yeah, I mean, Josh continued to show signs of improvement, significant improvement this year in particular. Feel very comfortable with Josh as our quarterback, and I think the contract, all that type of stuff usually handles itself in the off season, and I have a lot of confidence in Brandon to handle all that, whether it's Josh's situation or the other situations. It's not, we have other free agents that are whose contracts are up that are important pieces of our team, and so full confidence in Brandon and his staff to do what we need to do to move forward and close the gap moving forward.
What did he show you? This will be it for me, but what did Josh show you, this year in terms of the growth that everyone was kind of hoping for and what he was able to deliver on the field?
Yeah, I mean, there's very few parts of his game that aren't developed after his third season that you say he really struggles in this area. I mean, you can say, I think it's a small conversation of things that he still needs to evolve in, and he would tell you probably the same in those areas. So I've seen him do much of what it takes to win and win at a high level. And I think he answered quite a few of the questions that were out there about him, maybe from outside this building, specifically about his play. And I know that the comforting piece to me about Josh is he's going to go back to work. And I know the comments he made the other day after the game about, again, taking responsibility. I think when you do that as a leader, it says a lot about yourself, and it says a lot about what you're driven to accomplish in the future. And so he's an extremely driven young man with a bright future, and he's done a great job leading our team this season in particular.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate this year. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Adam.
Good morning, Sean. John Worrell.
Hi, John.
Congrats on making it through this unusual, chaotic year, but and hopefully we can do this at One Bills Drive next year. But aside from that, a year ago, Brandon Beane, placed an emphasis on the need to score points going into last offseason and delivered with Stephon Diggs and some other moves. What might be the emphasis going into this offseason as far as needs go?
It's probably a little bit too early, honestly. I mean, just coming off, we're 11:30 and Tuesday after the Sunday night game, honestly, John. So I have some early thoughts, but it's probably premature, just to get into them at too deep of a level right now. But like I said, just generally speaking overall, John, we've got to improve. I've got to improve. Our team's got to improve. Our staff has to improve. Here's what I know from experience. If you sit here and say, all we need to do is do this much more to make it to the Super Bowl, you're wrong. You got to start over. I mean, yes, you carry a lot of things forward, but every year you got to start over. You got to rebuild the football team. You got to grow as an individual. I mean, you've got to take it upon yourself, just because we had success, to ask yourself the hard questions. Listen, I can start off saying we've got to be able to run the football better, right? There's certain things of our team that I can tell you right now, I'm not going to get into them, but you have to take that growth mindset approach, because to think, well, we won 15 games and lost 4. Well, we're perfect. No, we're not. And even if we were, you got to take the growth mindset approach. And so that's what you do when you're a winner. That's what you do when you're hungry to be the best. And that's what we're going to continue to do. As long as I'm the head coach here, you got to do that, because it's like going from, I coach in the pros, right? Well, you coach in the pros. Well, that doesn't mean you know everything. And I got my first position coach. I think a lot of mistakes young position coaches make is, hey, I must know it all now because I've been given a position coach job. No, you don't. In fact, you got to work harder. And so that's the mindset we got to have around here.
I respect that answer. And just on another topic, as far as defense goes, was that maybe the biggest, as the bend but don't break style worked for much of the season, but was the defensive performance in some ways in giving up yards and points, 30 points a couple of times, was that maybe the biggest surprise? I don't want to say disappointment, but just biggest surprise going as to how that worked out over the course of the season?
Well, I don't know if that was the biggest surprise. I mean, your team is built in certain ways that you kind of know yourself going into the season, and we made a conscious effort to score points. We made a conscious effort to add to our special teams, to add to our offense. We also know that we're a pretty good defense, even though we fell out of the top where we were 2 the year before, 3 to what we were this year, just numbers wise. Within the way we play offensively, there's going to be counterattacks as well. So there's a complementary piece of that. Do we need to improve defensively? You're darn right we do. Absolutely we do. We need to improve overall as a football team. This is what I keep coming back to. And so just overall, we can play better. We can coach better defensively. But again, all of that starts with me. So that's what we got to do.
Appreciate the insights. Have a good offseason, Sean.
Okay, thanks. You too, John.
Hey, Sean, Thad Brown. To Adam's question about Josh, you started this year by saying that Josh's development was probably at the top of the list of most important things in terms of this team's success. Now looking back, is his development also maybe the number one accomplishment of this season or by your coaching staff?
Well, I believe, Thad, that it's certainly a benchmark or a landmark to where we've gotten beyond now, right? And I think that speaks well for the future of this organization moving forward. There's not a lot of teams that can answer that question and say, yes, we have our quarterback. And I can tell you, and you've watched it, Josh Allen is a very good quarterback and one we can win with for years to come. And so, not getting into contract situations and all that type of jazz, but really just talking about Josh's development this season was a huge step in our growth as a team, was a huge step in his growth as a player on and off the field. And I bet you if you polled anyone inside this building in particular, you get a probably unanimous vote that Josh Allen certainly proved himself and what he can do. Does that mean he's perfect? No. Does that mean he's got work to do? Yes, just like all of us.
And you talked about how different each season is and how you have to treat it that way. The last time you were on a staff that made a run like this was Carolina with the Super Bowl, and the team the next year went 6-10. Now, obviously, the situations are different in many ways, but do you take anything from how a successful season kind of eroded the next year and trying to avoid that and obviously keep this team heading in the other direction?
Well, that's where you got to carry it over, certain elements of it, some of those boulders to that, but you also have to start over and you got to put it back together again. Every year is a new year, every year is a new team. And that's where I went back to what I said a few answers ago with, you can't just say, well, we're going to start here and we only have to improve 6 more inches or a foot or whatever. You got to start over again, managing, farming, the culture, building the team, the chemistry. And then the thing that creeps in that you really got to watch is the disease of me, as Pat Riley calls it in his book, right? Where people think it's because of them that we had success. No, it's because of all of us, and that's the mindset we have to continue to have around here, and that's the mindset, quite honestly, we've had. But it's got to stay that very unselfish approach to how we do things and why we do things the way we do here.
I'll echo what everybody else has said about appreciating your time and hoping we do this in the same room soon.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Thad. Appreciate you.
Morning, Sean.
Morning, Sal.
I got a couple things for you. Real quick, though. The other day, Josh was asked about, did he feel like he had proved himself? And he said, yes. He usually doesn't talk like that. He's usually very reserved. Do you like the way he answered that question? He basically, not flipping the bird at us, but basically said, yeah, I proved to all of you that I can do this. Do you like that answer from him?
Well, listen, Josh is his own man, and he understands. I think he does a great job, as much as he's in front of the microphone as he is, in particular during the year of, doing a great job putting the team first. And in that case, I support him. I support my quarterback, and I'm glad that he expressed how he feels about himself. He's confident, he's decisive, and I thought that resonated in the statement he made, and I would echo that. I think he's answered that question. Now it's how far we go as a team for how many years.
And then lastly for me, you sort of just talked about it, but you've got a very difficult offseason. They're all difficult because the roster turns over, but with the lessened salary cap and the number of free agents you have, do you go into this offseason kind of concerned about how you can keep the roster together? Because you've gotten to this point and it's very tough to stay there.
It is tough to stay there. So it's staying power, sustained success. And we've had some of it, but there's always challenges every year, and they're different every year. Some are the same, but some are different in terms of the challenges. And again, I think it starts with a mentality of trying to keep as much of the pieces of our team together as possible. I know Brandon's going to do a great job and his staff with that. But it also goes back to a mindset as well of, like I referred to a few minutes ago, of staying very team oriented. The teams that can put the team first and continue to put the team first are the teams that'll stay together and win year after year. And so you see teams doing that, and there's a reason they're able to do that. And so I think that mentality is a piece that we have to manage and continue to be mindful of and aware of, because we cannot allow that disease, if you want to call it that, to creep into our organization here.
Okay. Thanks, Sean.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, you talked about that team first mindset and just not letting anything sink in, thinking about individual success and things like that. But now that you've had 4 seasons to put your culture in place and really get a core group of guys who have the DNA that you want here, where do you think the culture is now going forward? That you've had new players come in and you've had these new bodies come in, but you still have seemed to have kept that culture of a team first mindset in place. So I guess, how bright do you think the future is in regards to keeping your culture the way that you want it to and intact, knowing that more and new players will be coming in here?
Yeah, it's a great question, Matt. I think there's an inexact science to that, right? There's a lot of factors, what I'm saying, that kind of feed into that bucket, where you got to have the right people, you got to have the right veterans, and those veterans, your core group, have to be able to lead the new players. But the same with staff, right? You bring in new staff. If I'm not saying we're doing that, I'm just saying, like, when you add new pieces, some pieces in particular that have come from outside the building, some older than others, with more experience in other locker rooms, other cultures, you just have to be very careful. And I'm very protective of our roster and our team because of that, and our staff. So, and then once you get them in, you have to continue to farm and manage and cultivate the culture, because if you don't, it'll grow up in the form of weeds all around you before you know it. And it seems like my GPA in college that it's a lot easier for it to go down than to be where you want it to be. So it's an ongoing process, really, more than anything, Maddie. And this year, I think that's one of the big oversights. Having less time on the field in the preseason was certainly hard on the field, but just as hard off the field, because we really didn't get a chance to know these veteran free agents that we brought in, or for them to know us and what we expect and how we play and so on and so forth. So that relationship really got started late, and it was a short run up to the season where we were counting on these guys. And so that was an impactful part of the season, the shortened off season.
And then one of those core guys for this team has been Deion Dawkins, and he's just turned into a fan favorite in a lot of ways. And I know has brought a lot to this team. What can you say just about his development since he got to Buffalo and really being with you since the beginning of everything in Buffalo?
Yeah, I know Deion's a big presence on social media, as a lot of these guys are. And more power to him. I guess maybe I should evolve a little bit more with that end of things. Maddie, but he's grown in leaps and bounds since becoming a Buffalo Bill. Really proud of him off the field and on the field. Just like, the assessment that I make of myself for our team and Josh, we all have areas we can improve on. And I think Deion is very clear on what some of those areas are with him. And I'm anxious to watch him grow and excited about his growth going forward here.
Thank you, Sean. Enjoy the off season with your family.
Thanks, Maddie. You do the same.
Thanks.
Hi, Sean. You take a look at this defensive line, and we talk so much about Jerry all season long, but now with a full season in, you lost Star before the year. You had a number of new bodies in there, Mario, Quentin, Vernon, AJ, obviously is a rookie. What's your evaluation, as much as you can give it right now, about how that group performed and maybe what you need moving forward as you look to kind of, maybe reshape or bolster that group?
Well, I thought that they did some really good things. They really grew during the season, and that's a credit to the players and their mindset and being coachable, and also giving credit to Eric Washington and Jacques Césaire, our two defensive line coaches, as well as Leslie. And that's the impact of coaching. And what you can see at the end of the season was they were playing really good football. And so, having said that, that's a critical area for our football team to improve. We've got to be able to affect the quarterback with a 4-man rush. I thought at times we did that, and other times we could have been better, just like our entire defense or our entire football team. So there's still meat on the bone there. But I think more than anything, what Coach Washington was able to do is lay a foundation of techniques and understanding. And that's the growth we made through the season. So the exciting piece will be when the guys come back is they understand now what's expected in terms of the techniques and the fundamentals that go with playing at a high level at that position.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of, gathering understanding, Tremaine Edmonds, end of his third season, 2 Pro Bowls now, and he's still only 22 years old. I think a lot of times people forget that. How much did he grow or get better this year? And how much do you still think there's potential to grow? Obviously you know more than anybody what a big interior lineman can mean, Luke Kuechly in Carolina. What kind of path is there still for him to improve?
Yeah, I think Tremaine would say the same thing, that he really grew this season. He's grown in his first couple of seasons here together, and excited about what the future holds for his development. I think more than anything, the area I saw him grow the most in was just his impact as a leader, his impact in terms of his personality coming out a little bit more on our defense, and his intensity. And that's, if you want to be a really good player, you got to play at a very intense level all the time, from the beginning of the season to the end. And so Tremaine worked through a couple challenges early in the season with an injury or two, and I thought that'll be a good learning experience for him as well. And so this is all growing opportunities for our young linebacker.
Thanks, Sean. Have a good offseason.
Sure, you too.
Coach Mookie Hawkins, Buffalo Sports 1080. How's it going this morning?
Good, Mookie. How are you?
I'm good, Coach. Last year, 10-6 to finishing 15-4. What's your overall assessment from this year's crop, Coach?
From this year's, sorry.
From this year's team, what's your overall assessment?
Yeah, I'm encouraged by our season. Again, as I alluded to earlier, Mookie, this is a tough year. It's a tough year for everyone, not just the NFL, but everyone out there. And for us to be able to do what we did in a year like this, I think, again, says a lot about our organization, from left to right, from top to bottom, not just the football side, but how together we are as a team, how aligned we are as a building, our leadership and the leadership of Kim and Terry, to our people. So, to be able to do what we did in this type of season, this type of year with the challenges we had, I think really speaks volumes about where we've gone as an organization. And I alluded to that earlier with when we set out on this journey this season. We said, whoever has success this season is going to have an asterisk by their name at the end. And I think you see that. And now to have the Bills in that conversation, I think says a lot about what we've been able to do. Yet with a lot of work to yet do down the road here.
No doubt, Coach. And I know with that being said, you talked about Kansas City and, they are the benchmark, obviously. And, going into next year, I know it's not even a weekend yet, but how much would speed, you'll be looking to look for going into next season? And how do you take in what this team accomplished this year?
You mentioned going into looking at what to add, you said?
Well, speed being an emphasis that you're going to be looking for next year. And how do you take in and what, the major accomplishments that this team have done this year?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we accomplished a lot. We won a division, we won 13 games, hosted and won 2 home playoff games. There was one game after the game we just played in. And so, do we make a goal to make it to the AFC Championship game? No, the goal is to win the World Championship. And so we came up short, disappointed in that, but extremely grateful for what we were able to accomplish this season. And believe me, we're going back to work. We're already back at work to assess where we are and how we can move our team forward. So feel good about what we've done, not satisfied. The speed element, I think the speed element showed up on the field the other night. I don't think it took a coach to realize that. Speed and size. And that's what this game is. Speed, size, and physicality.
Absolutely, Coach. We know that One Bills Drive definitely has the traits in that building. It was an honor, just to get the opportunity to speak with you, your players, and staff as well. It's been wonderful to watch this season. Have a healthy offseason, Coach.
Thanks, Mookie. Great to communicate with you each week and everyone on the call. Appreciate everyone.
Yes, sir.
Hey, Sean, Josh Reed, congrats on a great season. There was a picture of you with Steph Diggs after the game. Before he got to Buffalo, I'm sure you knew exactly how good he was as a player. He obviously stood around because he wanted to take in, the confetti and the celebration, I guess, maybe his motivation. I don't know. Can you tell us maybe what that conversation was like and what you learned about his mentality, not just on the field, but the competitor that he is?
Yeah, I mean, so we were getting ready to close the locker room doors I was getting ready to address the team, and I got word that Josh Norman and Steph were still out there. So I wanted to go out there and bring them in. And, when I got to both of them, Steph was the first one I got to, and he was he was visibly upset. And so listen, I can understand why he wanted to stay out there and watch that. I've been around this game and those games enough, including the Super Bowl, where I can tell you I don't want to watch it anymore because I know how hard it is to watch it. But you learn from it, and that's part of what he needed to do to get closure and also learn from it. And when I got to him, he was obviously, like I said, visibly upset, and I just wanted to be there for him as a teammate. Nothing really more than that. Love him and care for him, and whether it was Steph Diggs or the last man on our roster, I would have done the same thing.
Hey, Josh Allen, there's a video of Josh Allen when the game was pretty much in hand, walking around, hugging everybody on the sideline, all of his teammates. I think we've seen what kind of leader Josh is over the last couple of years. What what does it mean when a quarterback is quote unquote one of the guys in the locker room? Because that's one of the positions where there can be a disconnect between the quarterback and maybe some of the locker room. And how has he kind of embraced that one of the guys type of mentality?
Yeah, Josh, you're spot on with that assessment. That can definitely happen because Josh is the guy that he is, the person that he is, not just the player that he is, but the person that he is, and he comes from the family that he comes from. Don't worry about that right here with him. He has the it over and over and over again. I mean, he's just unselfish. He puts a lot on himself. He endears himself to his teammates just by being him, and that was part of honestly the evaluation process that we went through with Josh, and that's why he fits Buffalo so well. Maybe a little bit of our environment helps with that, but most of it's born in him and raised through the support of his great family.
One last one for me, Sean. The draft class, you had 19 games to kind of watch these guys play. AJ Epinesa, Tyler Bass, and Gabriel Davis. Could you touch on them a little bit and kind of what you saw from those guys in the growth?
Yeah, good first years, all at different stages through the year. Gabe, I thought, got off to a really good start. Tyler hit some turbulence early, like most kickers do, and then worked himself through it. And I would say similar in AJ's development through the year, but both, as you close shop on their first season, can look back, all of them can look back and say, hey, a plus coming out of this first year. Now, the biggest challenge is, if you heard me say before, Josh, year one to year two, what are you going to do with it? And sometimes when you have success, there's a degree of, hey, I've got this. I've done this before when I've gone from high school to college or college. No, you can't do that because this league is too difficult and too challenging and too competitive. You got to go back out there and recreate yourself every off season.
Thanks, Coach. I appreciate your time as always. Have a good off season.
You too.
Hi, Sean. I know it's early and you're still kind of figuring these things out, but logistically, what do you expect this off season to look like in terms of, when you might be able to have contact with players and just how it might all look? I know there's already been some changes that the league's announced.
Yeah. We'll have to wait and see for concrete directions from the league on that, Matt. I think it's realistic to think it's going to be, not again, totally normal, back to normal yet, but hopefully maybe a blend. I think we've shown that we can manage working through the course of a season, or in this case, what you're referencing, an off season at some point together, and yet obviously still being safe. So I don't, those decisions are made above me, obviously. And, but in my mind, that's kind of, I think, what would be a balance of the two.
You mentioned that disease of me, which is an interesting concept that I'm curious what you learned from, maybe Philly, Carolina, your stops along the way about the financial piece of that when you get to this stage of the build and individuals are worried about, understandably so, their contracts and things like that, and how you fit all of that into not allowing that part of it, the me part, and how you fit it into the culture. Tougher to do, I guess, as those contracts come up.
Yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, this is a business, right? And so, but in the kind of way of trying to be a family, it's hard to balance those two, because at the end of the day, there's a business element to this. And so we're aware of that, right? And everyone has to obviously keep that in mind. Having said that, though, in order to continue to have success, you have to try and keep a team together the best you can. And it's more, when I say the disease in me, it's more of a mindset than anything. That people here, we all have to, myself included, can't say, well, it was only because of me we had success. And sometimes pride comes in the way, and ego, and all those things that entitlement, all those things that get in the way of winning, all the things that got us to where we are. We got to continue with that. We can't change now because we've tasted what we've tasted. Now it's got to only drive, that taste has to make us hungrier for the next step, and as opposed to making us feel like we've arrived.
Thank you, Sean.
Sure.
Hey, Sean, it's Kim Jones. I'm thankful for the time I've been able to cover you guys this year, so thank you. And this is an unbelievable softball question, but I'm certainly not worried about that at the moment. I have heard enough of your players talk about being the best version of themselves, or trying to, that they truly do buy into that. And I just wonder, do you think that philosophy that you've instilled there allowed players like Taron Johnson, like Darrell Williams, to make enormous plays in postseason that you could certainly argue put you on your way to the championship game?
Well, those guys made some great plays because of who they are as players too, Kim. Let's not overlook that. But here's the thing. I think, one of the main jobs of a head coach is to create or help facilitate an environment whereby people can be the best version of themselves. And that's a day-to-day job of a head coach, one of the daily jobs. And so myself, Brandon, Terry, and Kim, we always wanted to make Buffalo, when we got here, a place where it was a culture whereby people wanted to come here and they could experience the best version of themselves when they were here, whether they came from college to the Buffalo Bills or from another locker room in the NFL to the Buffalo Bills. As you know, this place is a special place, surrounded by a special fan base, and where else would you rather come than to Buffalo to play the best football of your career? This is to me a great place to play if you're truly passionate and love the game of football.
Thank you, Sean.
Sure. Thanks, Kim.
All right, Coach, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Nicole.